Good day everyone, we are from Tutorial 1 Group 3 and today we are excited to present our discussion on national difference in economic development. Without further ado, let us proceed to the case discussion. So hello everyone, I'm Janani here, and the first question that I'm gonna discuss is about what's the relationship among the property rights, corruption and economic progress, and how important are the anti-corruption effort in the effort to improve the country level of economic development. So imagine you are working hard to build your own business, only to fear that someone powerful could take it away anytime. Would you still invest your effort and money? Probably not, right? And that's exactly why the property rights are so important. Property rights give the people legal protection to own, use and benefit from what they create, whether it's land, business or an idea. When these rights are secure, individuals feel confident to innovate, invest and take risks, which leads to stronger economic growth and national progress. However, when the corruption exists, this progress begins to break down. What's corruption? So corruption is the abuse power for the personal gain. It weakens the property rights and damages the public trust. It increases the cost of doing the business through bribes, terrorism, and also unfair decision. So as a result, investors lose confidence, innovation slow, and the economic development would be in suffer. So the relationship is clear. Strong property rights promote growth, while the corruption destroys it. So when the corruption erodes the fairness and justice, people avoid the formal business activities, leading to the slower production, and also it would be weaker the economics. So now, let's look at why anti-corruption efforts are so vital for a country development. Firstly, they build investor confidence. When the rules are transparent and fair, both local and foreign investors feel secure to invest. It could be boosted job creation and also economic activity. Secondly, anti-corruption promotes fair competition. It ensures that success comes from the hard work and performance, not from the personal connection or the bribery. Thirdly, strong anti-corruption measures strengthen national institutions such as the courts, government agency, and also the law enforcement, and making them more transparent and accountable. And lastly, when the corruption is reduced, more public funds can go towards education, healthcare, and infrastructure. It improves the citizen quality of life and reduce the inequality. In conclusion, property rights and anti-corruption go hand in hand. So protecting people's rights while fighting corruption creates the trust, stability, and long-term economic growth. So because when the corruption ends, the real development begins.
I will be presenting an evaluation of 3 potential countries for foreign direct investment by a United States automobile company. China has one of the largest and the fastest growing automobile markets in the world, meaning there is a strong and continuous demand. Second, it has a highly developed manufacturing ecosystem with many suppliers and components located locally, which support efficient production. Third, the Chinese government actively promotes electric vehicle development, providing incentive and building supportive infrastructure. However, we also need to consider the cost. Setting up production in China requires high initial investment. The business environment involves complex regulations, both at national and provincial levels. There may also be expectation for local partnership or technology localization, which can increase long-term operating costs. China also carries several risks. They are still concerned about intellectual property protection, especially for advanced automotive technology. Geopolitical tensions between the United States and China. Next, having a production facility in Russia could give the company access to nearby regional markets, which makes exporting easier. However, investing in Russia also comes with several costs. Setting up operations requires navigating complex rules and regulations, including requirements for using local suppliers or producing a certain amount of components locally. Infrastructure is uneven across the country. While major cities like Moscow and the St. Petersburg are well developed, other areas have poor roads and limited logistic support, which increases the cost of transporting materials and finished vehicles. The workforce in some regions may also need additional training to handle advanced automotive production, adding further cost and time to the setup. In terms of risk, Russia presents significant challenges. Political instability and international sanctions can disrupt business operation and trade. The legal system is weaker than in many other countries, offering limited protection for foreign firms and intellectual property. Highly skilled workforce and excellent engineering capabilities, which are particularly valuable in the automotive sector. Its legal system is stable and intellectual property is well protected, providing confidence that our technology and investment will be secure. A production facility in Germany offers direct access to the European Union market, which allows us to reach a large and high-value customer base. However, investing in Germany also comes with notable costs. Labor, energy, and operational expenses are among the highest in Europe, making production more expensive than in many other countries. The country enforces strict environmental and safety standards, which can increase compliance costs and require additional investment in technology and processes. Furthermore, companies must comply with extensive tax and administrative requirements, which adds to the operational burden. In terms of risk, Germany is a highly competitive market dominated by established automobile brands such as Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz. The German and broader EU economies can also experience slowdowns, which may temporarily reduce demand for vehicles. Germany, on the other hand, offers a stable and reliable environment. It has a highly skilled workforce, strong engineering expertise, and a good protection for technology and investment. A facility in Germany also provides access to the European Union market, which is large and valuable. Even though costs are higher, the stability, legal certainty, and a skilled labor make Germany the most strategic choice.
Hello, I'm HYEWON and I'm presenting the opening summary case, India's economic transformation. First, India gained independence from Britain in 1947 and then adopted the socialist-style mixed economy, where the government controlled every industries. This period is known as the Renaissance because the private company needed the government approval for every business action. The goal was equality and self-sufficiency, but in reality, this causes bureaucracy, inefficiency, and corruption. And then the economic growth remained slow, only about 3 to 4% per year, and then foreign investments was very limited. In 1991, India faced a serious economic crisis and then decided to reform. The government started privatization, deregulation, and trade liberalization. It also reduced import tariffs and increased the investment. As a result, India's economy grew rapidly, especially in information technology and pharmaceuticals. The country's transformation shows how moving from government control to a more open market-oriented system can create innovation and growth. Now, let's summarize. This chapter explains how political, economy, and legal systems differ across countries and how these differences affect international business. Countries with strong property rights and low corruption tend to grow faster because they attract investment and increase entrepreneurship. In contrast, corruption and weak legal systems discourage investors and make economic progress unstable. So, the key message is that a country's institutional environment, its political, economy, and laws shapes the opportunities and risk for global business.
So now let's move to the question 3. So what kind of economic system did India operate under during 1947 and until 1919, and what kind of system it is moving towards today? What are the impediments and competing this transformation? Have you ever wondered how India went from tight control economy to one of the fastest growing in the world? Well, let me take you on that journey. So after gaining independence in 1947, India adapted to a socialist-inspired mixed economy. So the government ran most of the major industry through state-owned enterprise, while the private companies need official permission just to expand it. So the economy was shaped by 5-year plan and high import tariff were used to protect the local industries. But despite of good intention, this system made the economy slow and also inefficient. Strict labor laws made it almost impossible to the fireworkers to discourage the companies from hiring more. Then come 1991, the turning point of India. India faced a severe crisis and decided to open its door to the world. The license Raj was abolished and state-owned companies were privatized. And these key sectors like oil, steel, telecom and aviation were open to the private and foreign investor. tariff was dropped from nearly 400% to just 65%, and tax rates were cut, giving a huge boost to innovation and also entrepreneurship. These reforms turned India into a global hub for IT, pharmaceutical, and also for exports. But even with all of this progress, the journey isn't easy. India still faces major impediments to full economic transformation. First, there are political resistance. Some leaders are reluctant to push deeper reform that could be upset the traditional interests. Next, the privatization has been slow. The state-owned enterprise still produce around 38% of non-farm output, so meaning that the government continues to dominate the large part of the economy. Rigid labor laws are another level of obstacle. Company with over 100 workers, they need government approval to just lay off their staff, which it discourages the expansion and also the investment. Then there are still small scale of industry law that limit how big business can grow, making it tough for the local firm to compete in the globally. And of course, there are fear of cheap imports, especially from China, which keeps some industry overly protected instead of encouraging the competition. So lastly, bureaucracy and corruption still slow down the progress and making the business operation complicated and time consuming. So that's all from me. I pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
Now, I'll move on discussion 3B. The question asks, how might widespread public ownership and regulation have affected business efficiency and entrepreneurship in India from 1947 to 1990? After independence, India followed a socialist model with heavy government control. The government believed that state ownership would reduce inequality and promote development. However, in practice, it created serious problems. First, efficiency declined. State-owned enterprise or SOEs had little competition and were protected by the government. Without market pressure, they became bureaucratic, overstaffed, and unproductive. Many SOEs operated as a loss but continued to exist because the government kept funding them. Second, private business also struggled. Under the license laws, companies needed numerous government approval to start, expand, or even change their product lines. This progress was slow, corrupt, and filled with red tape. As a result, entrepreneurs became discouraged from starting new business. Overall, between 1947 and 1990, India's economic system limited both efficiency and innovation. Instead of encouraging competition, the system rewarded connection with bureaucratic. In conclusion, India's experience shows that excessive regulation and public ownership reduce efficiency and prevent entrepreneurship. When India liberalized its economy in 1991, growth increased because businesses were finally free to compete and innovation.
I will explain how privatization, deregulation, and the removal of barriers to foreign direct investment affect the efficiency of business, new business formation, and the rate of economic growth in India during the post-1990 period. After 1991, India moved away from heavy state control to a more competitive market-based system. The government introduced privatization, removed many restrictive regulations, and opened the country to the foreign investors. These changes were meant to make businesses more productive, encourage new firms to enter the market, and push India's economic growth to a higher level. Privatization helped many former state-owned enterprises become more efficient because private owners tend to manage resources more responsibly and reduce waste. Deregulation removed many approval requirements and made business decisions faster and cheaper. When India opened up to FDI, global companies entered the market, bringing new technology and international standards. This created healthy competition, forcing Indian firms to upgrade and become more efficient. Effect on new business formation. With fewer licenses required, starting a business became much simpler. Many sectors that were previously restricted were open for a private participation. This created spaces for new entrepreneurs. Foreign companies also partnered with Indian businesses, which expanded funding and knowledge transfer. As a result, India saw a rise in innovation and new business creation, especially in sectors like IT, telecom, and services. Effect on India's economic growth. All these reforms together increased India's productivity and investment levels. Technology improved, firms became more efficient, and industry expanded. The economy slowly shifted from being agriculture dependent to a more modern economy focused on services and manufacturing. As a result, India's average growth rate doubled after 1991, marking one of the most significant economic transformations in the country's history.
Hello, my name is Farish bin OSFAIRULAZMIR. I will continue this presentation by answering question 3D, which is India now has a pocket of strength in key high technology industries such as software and pharmaceutical. Why do you think India is developing strength in this area? How might success in this industry help generate growth in the other sector of the Indian economy? Why did India develop software and pharmaceutical sectors? It's because India has a large technical skill and English-speaking workforce which provide them a competitive edge. Not only that, but their software and pharmaceutical sectors, labor costs are much lower than other developed countries. This is because policy reform and liberalization, such as the economic liberalization in 90s, foreign direct investment inflows and government support have allowed rapid growth in software and pharmaceutical sectors by creating infrastructure and policies. Then, it also contributes and encourages continuous growth of innovation in software and pharmaceutical sectors, such as innovative business model, which in turn will influence tech startup in the nation, thus attracting global investment. Lastly, both software and pharmaceutical sectors are export-oriented. Since both sectors have a huge scale and human capital, they can leverage global demand and become major export earners in the country. Then we go how success in this industry foster growth. First and foremost is it creates job and develop human capital. Direct and indirect employment in IT or software and pharmaceutical has grown rapidly, thus raising incomes and skill level. It also makes spillover effect where software sectors entrepreneurship, management, digitalization model are being adopted in other industry, thus improving productivity and governance in other sectors. It also encourages growth on other sectors. IT solutions and pharmaceutical affordable medicine encourage growth in other sectors such as banking, healthcare, education, and logistics. Since both software and pharmaceutical sectors are export-oriented, high export revenue will strengthen the balance of the payment and attract further investment. This will further encourage infrastructure and innovation growth. Now we go to question 3E. Given what is now occurring in the Indian economy, do you think that the country represents an attractive target for inward investment by foreign multinationals selling consumer products? Why? I think India is attractive for inward investment because of its ever-expanding consumer market. India's rapid middle-class growth, urbanization, rising disposable income create strong demand for consumer products. It also has favorable demographic like India's young and cost-effective workforce supports production and consumption of consumer product, making it a strategic market. Market liberalization also become a factor where government liberalized FDI policies such as reduced tariff, lower corporate taxes and easier FDI rules allow higher foreign ownership. India's political and economical stability also influence ongoing improvement on infrastructure such as e-commerce and digital marketing further enhance investor demand. Thank you.
Hi, my name is SUGAN son of SIVA-KUMAR. Now let's talk about a summary of closing case, which is what is Argentina. A century ago, Argentina, one of the world's wealthiest nations, blessed with abundant natural resources, a strong agriculture sector, and an educated population. For most of the last 70 years, the government has consistently spent more money than it collects in taxes, creating persistent budget deficits. To finance its deficit, the government has repeatedly resorted to printing money, leading to some of the highest inflation rates in the world, which destroy savings and create economic uncertainty. The political and economic landscape is dominated by the legacy of Juan Perón, who established a model of populist policies, state intervention, and nationalization of industry in the mid-20th century. Peronist government have consistently expanded the state's role by nationalization companies like the largest oil firm, raising the tariff barriers to protect inefficient domestic industry and imposing taxes on exports. Taxing agriculture exports, one of the Argentina's most competitive sectors, has depressed investment and limited the country's ability to achieve exploded growth. High inflation and unpredictable policy have led Argentinians to move their money out of the country and disrupt foreign investment, starving businesses of capital and causing economic growth to slow. President Mauricio Macri attempted to liberalize the economy by cutting subsidies and export taxes, but his caution reform failed to control inflation or prevent a severe recession, leading to a public backlash. Macri was succeeded by Alberto Fernandez, who has advocated a return to classic Peronist policies, including higher welfare benefits, energy subsidies, and increased taxes on agriculture exports. So, the case concludes that countries which isolate themselves from international trade and implement welfare programs, they cannot afford generally perform poorly, suggesting Argentina prospect for recovery or not encouraging if it is continues this path. Let's move on to the first case discussion. What are the root causes of Argentina's relatively poor economic performance? Explain how these causes have impacted the country's economic growth rate. So the first root case is chronic macroeconomic instability and hyperinflation. So the first one, government deficit. The Argentine government has spent more than it earns in taxes almost every year since 1950. It consistently funds expensive programs like a large public sector and huge energy subsidy without having the revenue to pay for them. Second, the printing money instead of reforming. The government often finances its deficit by simply creating new money. The central bank may print more pesos to lend to the government. So, what the impact of it? So it drives capital flight when people see their savings in pesos losing value every day. They desperately try to move their money into stable currency like the US dollars. This will be drain the country of the wealth needed for investment. Then it will disencourage all investment. Both Argentinians and foreigners are afraid to invest in businesses because inflation makes it impossible to plan, cost and revenue become unpredictable, making any long-term project far too risky. Then the slow down the growth and hyperinflation. As the Kate states, the businesses are starved for capital and cannot make productive investment. Without investment, the economy cannot grow, create jobs, or improve living standards. Argentina also suffers from the inflation like the highest inflation rates in the world. So the second root cause is a political economy against the market-based system. So state intervention and nationalization. The government has a long history of nationalization private company from railway and utilities to the largest oil company. This replaces the private owners with state control. Second, the isolation from the global economy. To protect local company from competition, the government raises high tariff barriers on imports. It also taxes exports, especially from its very efficient agriculture sector. Third is a harmful subsidies and taxes. The government spends billions on subsidies like extremely cheap electricity, which is cannot afford. At the same time, it taxes successfully export industry to raise cash. This action distort prices and punish the country's most productive sectors. So, what are the impacts? So, the impact is to protect inefficiency by shielding companies from foreign competition. The government removes the incentive for them to innovate, improve quality, or lower cost. It makes the entire economy less productive. It will punish the exporter also. Argentina is a very good at farming and could earn a lot of money by selling food to the world. However, the government taxes this farm export which take away the farmers' profit and this encourages them from producing more. This damages the country's biggest opportunity for economic growth. So the third root cause will be the weak institution and unprotected property right. So it will be unpredictable and changing rules. Every time a new government comes to power, it directly changes the economic policies of the previous one. For example, President Macri tried to open the economy, but his successor, Alberto Fernandez, immediately moved to the reverse those policies. This means the business can never be sure what the rules will be in the future, making long-term planning impossible. Second, the property rights are not secure. The government has a history of taking over private companies, a process called nationalization. Furthermore, the company has discussed the defaulting on its foreign debt. So this action signal to everyone, foreign investors and local business owners alike, that their property investments are loans are not safe. So the third one is that the legal system lacks strength. In Argentina, the constant changes in regulation and the threat of government intervention means that the legal contract might not be worth the paper it's printed on. It creates a high level of legal risk. So what's the impact of it? So it will stop the investment. No company will commit to building a factory if it fears the government could take it over or make it unprofitable with the new laws. This fear that explains the case finding that foreign businesses have limited their investment in the nation. Secondly, it will kill the innovation. Entrepreneurs are unlikely to invest time and money creating new products or services if they can't be sure they will be own the profits. So it will kill the innovation that is essential for economic growth.
Hello everyone, my name is Muhammad Rafi and I'm here going to present to you about case discussion 1, case discussion 2 and 3. So first question is, how will you explain the persisting appeal of Peronism in Argentina, even though the economic track record of Peronist government has not been good? So first, we need to know what is Peronism first. Peronism is a populist labor-oriented political movement in Argentina that originated with President Juan Perón. In the 1940s, its core tenets include social justice, economic independence, through state control of key industries, and nationalist foreign policy. So we come to the question of, if these policies have produced such poor results, why do voters keep choosing them? The answer is simple. It comes down to a fundamental asymmetry between benefits and costs. Peronist policies deliver tangible benefits that people experience directly and immediately. Subsidized utilities, social housing, pension benefits, public sector jobs. Every month when you pay your cheap electricity bill, you feel that benefit. The costs, by contrast, are abstract. The idea that subsidies drain budgets and fuel inflation, or that protectionism reduces long-term productivity. These are macro concepts that don't register as clearly in daily life. So, over the decades, the system built a massive constituency of stakeholders. Millions of public employees, union members, and protected industries are dependent on continued intervention. When reforms cause short-term pain, populist narrative effectively blame external actors like IMF or foreign creditors rather than underlying their own policies. So we've come to the case discussion 3 or case study 3. What policies do you think the government of Alberto Fernandez should pursue? How might these policies help Argentina achieve higher economic growth? So, breaking this trap requires a comprehensive package where each element reinforces the others, because piecemeal reforms has repeatedly failed. And start with macroeconomic stabilization, balance the budget over several years, and monetary financing of deficits entirely. Only when inflation stabilizes can business plan ahead and invest for the long term. Reorient trade policy outward by eliminating export tax and pursuing real trade agreement like Mercosur EU. Opening to international competition, force productivity improvement through technology adoption, scale economics, and learning from global markets. Rebuild institutional credibility by strengthening property rights and avoiding arbitrary expropriation through taxation and or regulation. Investors need confidence that their investment won't be undermined by the next government. So, replace this with targeted means tested transfers. This protects vulnerable households while restoring correct price signals that guide the efficient investment and resource use. Restructure the state's economic role through deregulation and privatization. Remove barriers to entry and exit. Privatize laws, making enterprise and let markets direct resource to productive use rather than political ones. So the growth mechanics are straightforward. Stabilization reduces uncertainty and unlock saving. Trade openness lift productivity through competition and technology. Secure property rights raise expected returns, and the growth mechanics are straightforward. Stabilization reduces uncertainty and unlock saving. Trade openness lift productivity through competition and technology. Secure property rights raise expected returns and attract investment. Targeted protections maintains political support without creating a distortion. So together, these drive the sustained productivity growth and rising incomes that Argentina really needs. The challenge is, as we've seen, is maintaining these reforms long enough for results to appear before political pressures force another reversal. So this is our reference slide, and that's all from us. Thank you.